and you can share it with any of your colleagues that might be interested. Okay, so that's all set up. And then switch over to PowerPoint. Here we go. Okay, hello everyone. My name's Ian. I'm here alongside Ashley from CAF and Teresa, who will be also presenting on this webinar with you.
Hi, so I'm Ashley. I'm the Campaigns and Public Affairs Manager at the Charities Aid Foundation, and I'm also the campaign lead for Giving Tuesday in the UK.
Hello, I'm Teresa. I'm Lightful Social Media Manager.
And as you can see, I'm Ian. I'm Director of Customer Success here at Lightful. So I'll just go through the agenda of what we're going to cover today very quickly. So first of all, Ashley's going to give you a bit of history around Giving Tuesday and how CAF are involved, and how it's evolved as a day in the UK. As many of you know, and as we talk about often, a lot of people in the US are very much more aware of it, but it's been big in the UK for quite a few years now. And I assume that's why a lot of you are joining to learn more about that. And then we'll take you through some really good case studies and successful examples of Giving Tuesday campaigns. And then what Teresa will do for us as a social media management expert within Lightful is take you through a very practical getting started guide of what you can do from now until Giving Tuesday to make sure you're ready for the day and beyond. And then finally, what we'll do is take you through the Lightful Story Builder, which is essentially a free-to-use tool for charities where you can build your stories and engage with the audiences rather than just sending out ad hoc posts, essentially. So, over to Ashley.
Hi, so I'm Ash. As I said, I lead the campaign here in the UK. So I work for the Charities Aid Foundation, who provides a number of services for charities and businesses. It's all aimed at growing giving and making giving count in the UK and internationally. So when we heard about Giving Tuesday in the US, which is where it originated, we took it on board and lead the campaign in the UK. So what is Giving Tuesday? I know some of you on the call are either partners or will know it well, but just to give you an introduction to exactly what it is and how it came about. It started in the US as an antidote to Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So when everyone's going mad in the shops, taking the Tuesday following that to think about giving back and really being a global movement for doing good. It's a fantastic campaign where charities can ask people to get involved either by donating, volunteering, or campaigning in any way. It's grown hugely over the last 5 years. This is the 5th year that it's been running. And it now runs in over 40 countries worldwide, which it continues to grow each year. We're seeing more and more countries on board, but also here in the UK, it's growing bigger and bigger each year. We have over 2,300 partners of the campaign who we all work together with to provide toolkits to ensure that they can make the most of Giving Tuesday. The sheer amount of profile that Giving Tuesday has means that it gives huge profile to anything that a charity wants to talk about. Just to give you an example of some of the key partners who are involved, to demonstrate how big it is, we work with a lot of different corporates in terms of trying to promote their CSR strategies, which is a really good way for charities to hook into Giving Tuesday by speaking to corporates who can help raise the profile of their charity. You can see on the screen now some of our big name partners. So Thomson Reuters, they have the big screens in Canary Wharf showcasing everything about Giving Tuesday on the day. The BT Tower in London has a wrap that's all about Giving Tuesday. The Royal Mail have a Giving Tuesday stamp on the day. So it is really something that's really high profile, and our role at CAF is to provide charities with the toolkits and ability to really utilise it for their benefits. On the screen now you'll see some of the social media posts that we've seen for some high profile supporters that you might recognise, including Britney Spears. Obviously, it's first and foremost a social media campaign, which is why we're absolutely delighted to join Lightful here today, who are going to talk you through some of the ways that you'll be able to really strategise and make the most.
Sorry about that, everyone. We just got briefly disconnected. I'm going to share the screen in one moment. There we go. Everyone should be able to see again and hear us. If you could just confirm on the chat if you still have any issues, but I'll let Ash continue now.
Brilliant, thank you very much, and apologies for that. So hopefully you've heard my sort of joke about whether you recognise Britney Spears or not. But just on the screen at the moment, we've got some snippets from social media on the day to demonstrate the huge amount of support that the campaign has from high-profile celebrities such as Emma Watson, right through to politicians such as Obama or the civil society minister here in the UK. It trends on Twitter all throughout the day, and as a social media campaign, first and foremost, being #GivingTuesday, it really is yours for the taking in terms of utilising the profile of the campaign to promote anything that you're doing. And then we just have a couple more images of tweets from Tom Daley and Seth Green, Ricky Gervais. So it's also a really good way of contacting any of your celebrity supporters in your charity, either to try and introduce your charity or to really strengthen the relationships that you already have, because obviously they love the fact that Giving Tuesday is so high profile, and so it's a really good opportunity to check in with them. So what happens on Giving Tuesday? As I said, we're here to facilitate a day that charities can make the most of and utilise for their benefits. Each year it breaks the world record for the most amount of money donated online in 24 hours. But it's not just about donating money. You can use it to either recruit volunteers, do a bespoke event, or just to raise the profile of your organisation. We have a number of toolkits on our Giving Tuesday website, which you can see on the screen. And after this webinar, we'll be sending these links through, so you'll be able to access them afterwards. So don't worry if you can't access them at the moment. So as I said, our role at the Giving Tuesday headquarters at CAF is really to facilitate you with everything that you need to make the most of the day. So on our website, we have a variety of different ideas. So the 15 things your charity can do, right through to why your charity should get involved, in case you're not convinced after this webinar. But because Giving Tuesday is run by CAF, we obviously have a lot of expertise in terms of increasing giving and everything to do with trying to make the most of your fundraising and other charity campaigns. So on our website, we're always linking through to things like, as I've mentioned here, the creating winning emails, which we've done for our charity partners. And on our Giving Tuesday website, which is givingtuesday.org.uk, you can also sign up to become a partner, which is where we're constantly sharing lots of these kinds of toolkits and tips of how to get involved, and ideas of how to really make the most of it. To bring the campaign to life a little bit, I'm just going to talk really briefly about some of our biggest case studies, although just to note that we'll talk about some of the bigger charities, but there's really something for everyone to get involved, no matter what size your organisation is. And Lightful are going to go through some fantastic ideas of how you can get involved. But just to kick off with Marie Curie, who do a fantastic campaign. They've been with us since the beginning of Giving Tuesday, and they do a campaign all around thanking their supporters. So instead of asking for money on Giving Tuesday, because sometimes it can be quite a crowded time as in the lead up to Christmas, they ask each member of their staff to spend around 15 minutes of their time writing thank you notes to donors, which has a huge impact on and is a really nice touch and way of engaging with partners, with supporters on Giving Tuesday. And the feedback they've had is that actually they've seen donations increase because of that, because they've been so touched by the thank you note that they've sent on Giving Tuesday, which is a really nice way of using the campaign to do something really positive, which really demonstrates the ethos of Giving Tuesday, which is all about giving back and focusing on all the good that can be done in the world. We also have a case study here from Dogs Trust. As I mentioned earlier, it's actually a really good day to get in touch with corporate partners or potential corporate partners, be that big national ones or local businesses in your local area, because you can ask them if they're doing anything on Giving Tuesday, and note that it's a really good day for them to promote their CSR, which is obviously a growing expectation amongst the public amongst businesses. So that's a really good hook to use Giving Tuesday. And here we think the Dogs Trust work with Radley in a fantastic way, in that they launch a bespoke dog walker handbag on Giving Tuesday, and to date that partnership has generated £50,000 for the Dogs Trust, and the feedback from Radley that they've given to the Dogs Trust is that Giving Tuesday is a really good day to launch it on, simply because of that profile and the amount of people that they engage with. And as I said, we'll talk a bit later on about how smaller charities can use it as well.
Great, thank you, Ash. So now that you all understand a bit more about Giving Tuesday and how you can really sign up to be a partner and get involved, what we're going to do is take you through some quick ideas of how you can get involved, and then Teresa, as I said before, will take you through practical tips of how to plan for the day itself and beyond. So as Ash said as well, and as we always say on our webinars, is Giving Tuesday isn't just all about raising more money. It's about building better relationships and stronger relationships with your donor base and supporters. So different ways you can really get involved are obviously raising awareness of your brand, engaging with your current donor base, the same as Marie Curie did, and appreciating those people. And then obviously part of it is about raising money on a day for some people, if that's what your main objective is. And then asking for donated items is another niche area where a lot of people have support in terms of community, getting the community involved and getting them to donate items. And then if you feel like, as many do, a bit overwhelmed at this time of year with campaign planning, there's nothing to say that you can't also tie this in with your current plans of annual Christmas or other fundraising campaigns that you have in mind. What we're going to do quickly now is ask a quick poll to see, for Giving Tuesday this year and the giving season in general, what are your main objectives? So this should load up now on your screen. You can select as many as you like of these, I believe. So just give a quick hands up. What are people mainly hoping to achieve with Giving Tuesday? Cool. And unsurprisingly, most people are in the mood for raising more funds. But then as well, I imagine as secondary objectives, those top of the funnel, raising awareness and building engagement with your donor base are also very important for people. And then a few people here launching their Christmas campaign and other end of year campaigns. Yeah, that's not surprising either. So all valid reasons for embracing Giving Tuesday. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll now. No more answers. It's closing. There we go. And I will share the results with everyone afterwards as well. Okay. Now, some quick tips for a successful Giving Tuesday campaign. Here at Lightful, one of our advisors is Beth Cantor. Some of you may have read some of her books featured on the right-hand side there. But something we teach through our curriculum with a few of our more premium members is how to get ready for Giving Tuesday and how to plan effective campaigns in general. So she uses a framework called Ready, Set, Go. And this is all about really having everything in place for a successful giving season and campaign. The first one of those is setting your objectives and knowing who your audience is. One of the biggest mistakes many people make is not really targeting the messaging or tailoring the message to each of your audiences. So think about, within your charity, who are your different personas? Now, that could be, your high net worth individual givers. It might be people who are advocates for your brand, but won't ever necessarily donate money to you, but can really help you to spread the message. And then even internally at your own organizations, really embracing your staff and volunteers to spread the message on your behalf can have a huge impact on a day like this, where the Giving Tuesday hashtag will be trending on Twitter. and Facebook to some extent as well with the with the hashtag integration. Now, secondly, to get ready, obviously you want to be unique in what your campaign theme, asks, and stories are, which we'll come on to later. And then to get set, as I said before, it's not about just broadcasting one-off messages. It's really about storytelling and telling the unique story of your brand and how you target your cause and your supporters and your donors, and matching that up with what they care about. When it comes to recruiting champions, as Ash showed you earlier, obviously Giving Tuesday has celebrity champions, and some of us aren't as lucky to be able to have those connections. But champions, again, can be internal advocates. So it might be people on your board, it might be some of your trustees, it can be your volunteers, it can be anyone who wants to spread the message of your organization. And then when it comes to campaign assets, there's a really good social media toolkit for Giving Tuesday that we'll send a link for afterwards. But being ready with all of your creatives and your content and your copy ready to go for Giving Tuesday is something that we'll guide you through shortly. And that's all of those things together help you to get organized, essentially. And then one thing to remember, as with any effective campaign, is not forget to say thank you, and also to look back on your campaign results. So after Giving Tuesday, it comes Gratitude Wednesday. And if you're not already using Giving Tuesday for donor appreciation, it's definitely a good day to thank all of your donors that may have helped you raise money on the day. And then what you want to be doing with all of your learnings and your results from Giving Tuesday, as always, is make sure you document where you've had success, and how you can use those successes and build on them for next year's campaign or your next campaign in general. Now, when it comes to setting objectives, I think we're all guilty of perhaps setting objectives that are a bit too general and lofty. So we always use the SMART framework here at Lightful, and when we advise people, to always be specific, always be measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Now, realistically, what does that mean for you as a charity or a non-profit? These are some really good examples of where other charities and non-profits have used smart objectives for their Giving Tuesday campaigns. So don't be worried. It doesn't have to be something really ambitious. It has to be achievable. So if you look at the bottom there, you might like to activate some of your staff and board members to thank donors for their support. Now, that's a very easy one. And then for some of you, obviously, raising £3,000 might be a lot of money, but set something that's reasonable for success you've had before, and maybe stretch yourself a little more and be specific in that, okay, we want to raise £3,000, but what will this do and what will the results of it be? It will be to cover the cost of one day of services, for example, for 30 hospice patients. So specific, measurable, and you need to know where you're aiming for to be able to get there. And then we'll help you get there through a clear content strategy shortly. And then when we talk about crafting a unique campaign theme and ask, these are all of the questions that you need to be critically asking yourself. Again, you don't want to be general. You don't want to set a general campaign theme and ask. You always need to be thinking about your audience. Why should it matter to them, or why does it matter to them what you're trying to put across? How does that relate back to your organization's mission? What will the impact of the campaign be? Will that resonate with your prospective donors? Because Giving Tuesday will help you to reach new people on the day through others sharing your message and the hashtags trending, etc. And then what is the ask? As we've said, it could be clothing donations, it could be donor appreciation, it could be asking service users how you've impacted their lives, for example. And finally, is it human, authentic, and emotionally relevant? So is it attracting that piece within inside of us that finds content engaging, where we feel connected with at a human level? And now, all of that does sound quite theoretical, and some of you are probably now thinking, how the hell do I put that into practice over the next 4 weeks? Because I want to get involved with Giving Tuesday, but we're not quite there yet. Teresa is actually going to be a little less fluffy than I've been and give you very specific ways of getting ready for Giving Tuesday.
Well, now it's time to be a little bit more practical because it's usually hard to get started, especially when you're not sure, you haven't joined the campaign yet. The question is, how can I really make it more tangible to create a content plan for the next weeks? So this is an example of a calendar, just to give you an idea of how you could make the most of the next weeks. These are some suggestions, and we'll make sure we send you the screenshot. But it's pretty much to give you an idea of how you could really organize your time as much as possible. Because the more you get organized these weeks, the better it will be for you during the day, not to feel that you're really busy, it's really hectic. So you can start, for example, starting the month in a great way, feeling about planning and getting organized. So you can start think of the themes and what we discussed about setting the SMART objectives. And then you can get more practical to think of what would you really like to achieve in these 5 weeks, and how can you really make the most of the day, no matter what you set as your objective. So if we start the planning, for example, from 4 weeks, which is the first week of November, it's exactly 4 weeks for Giving Tuesday. So this is the right time to start thinking of what you'd like to form for your campaign. You want to start planning ahead. So as we mentioned before, and we'll share more details, you can use Lightful Story Builder to craft your story and schedule some posts and find some inspiration on what you'd like to talk about. So as you start thinking of your objectives, you want to make sure that these align with what you have in mind and what you'd like to achieve on the day. Whether it's awareness, engagement, raise more funds, find new donors, you want to make sure that your content strategy aligns with it. You can also use this time to post a quick campaign teaser, so you can just share on your social accounts. We're excited to join this year with Giving Tuesday. This is what we're going to do, and we'll start sharing our story within the next 4 weeks. As we're getting towards 2 or 3 weeks before the big day, it's time to get even more practical. In this case, you want to start thinking of your audience, your ideal supporters, or your most loyal ones. How can you make sure that they're all on board for the big day to help you as much as possible? So as you start scheduling your content, you realize that I'm feeling more organized, but of course I want to make sure that I make the most of the day. So a good idea is to build your own social media toolkit for your own champions and supporters. It doesn't have to be really scary. It doesn't have to be a really big document, but you can still have some ideas of what your posts should be on the day. You want to make their lives easier just to make sure that you've got the right messaging and everyone's sharing the same messaging that you want. You can share with them some images, some status updates, and the ideal things that you want to say on every platform. So this is also making it easier for you to track on the day of who's talking about you and what you'd like to take on that. It's pretty much the time that you start telling your story. You're getting an idea of what you'd like to focus on, and you start doing the narration through your social channels. And we're heading towards the big day. It's 1 week before, so this starts feeling more realistic. You start getting an idea of what you're scheduling, so you want to make sure that everything is going to be great on the day. You can finalize your social media toolkit, or you can just send it 1 week before. You still have the time. And you can also start thinking of an hour-by-hour schedule on the day of how do you imagine the day? What would you like to say? Or even have some emergency planning ahead. So if something goes wrong, if someone really jumps on the conversation, what would you like to say? So the more prepared you are before the day, the easier it will be for you. And of course, you can also start thinking about the measurement and setting again the goals. You want to make sure that you're able to track them. So a simple spreadsheet could work in this case, just to say, ideally, I'd like to set these goals and this is what I'd like to achieve. Even if you don't actually reach that, it's still a great way to set your lessons and say that I want to make sure that I'm tracking what I'm working on so that I know.
Okay, sorry about that. We're back now. I'll just share the screen again. There we go.
Let us know if there are any other problems. Is everything okay now?
Yeah, Mark said you got to simple spread, and then so maybe just.
Should we repeat the previous slide, or should we just go ahead here?
Did you all hear the beginning of the 1 week before slide? Yeah, just, okay.
So we start again 1 week
Yeah, just
before.
do the 1 week before again.
So we've reached 1 week before Giving Tuesday. It's the time that you start feeling more organized and knowing exactly what you'd like to do on the day. And don't worry, you don't need to plan everything in advance, but the more you're organized, the better you feel the day. So depending on what you've done the previous weeks, you might feel more comfortable on some areas, or you might want to finalize some scheduling of the posts. So you want to focus on the social media toolkit again, or anything that has to do with the communication with your champions. So you can send them a reminder. It might be a Facebook group, it might be an email, just to make sure that they're on board. You can find new ones through your social accounts. So you pretty much want to make sure that your supporters and your followers on social media are aware about your campaign. You want to make sure that when they see your posts on the 27th of November, they're quite aware of what you're talking about, at least to familiarize with it. And if you want to save time, you can also create some Twitter lists of influencers, your best supporters, the most loyal ones, or the ones you'd like to reach, just to make sure that you're tracking as many details as possible and then having an idea of what you'd like to do on the day. And of course, you can finalize your content. You can just make sure that all the posts, the photos, the videos are in place. Or if you didn't feel that you had the time to start planning 4 weeks ahead, it's still a good time to start scheduling your posts. Just have a week ahead just to organize everything that you want. And we've reached a day before. Hopefully this shouldn't be really anxious day, but you never know how the planning goes. So it's always a good idea the day before to get with your team, have a quick chat, maybe to engage with your supporters, just to check that everything is ready. You can have a look at your scheduled posts just to see that everything is ready to go live, that your story is well prepared, and you're just ready for the big day. The start of the big day, it's probably a good idea to have again a check-in with your team. If you're just like a small charity, you don't need to worry about this, but it's still to keep an eye if everything goes out well as planned. A good idea might be to change your social media covers. You can just use some online tools that are free and quite easy to use to change cover photos and profile pictures, just to show that you're really focused on this campaign. No matter what objective you might have, it's still a great way to engage your audience and find new supporters. So why not trying to change some ideas and be more creative? I'd suggest you use more of the day, if you're feeling more organized with the scheduling of the posts, to monitor the hashtag Giving Tuesday. It's going to be the trending hashtag of the day on Twitter, for example, and all social platforms. So there's a great opportunity for your charity to reach a new audience that's really engaged and really willing to spread the word and join the day of giving. And of course, you're probably going to have more mentions than usually on your platforms, which means that it's a good idea to be more social, to be more engaging and find new opportunities, whether these are your loyal supporters or if there are some possibly influencers that you may have or some celebrities. There's always a new opportunity with Giving Tuesday. And you can also think about keeping the momentum going, because it's quite easy to just get lost through the hashtag on the day and it's really popular. So you want to make sure that you do have a plan of posting. For example, on Twitter, you could post every 2 hours. It's perfectly fine. It's a big day of posting and everyone is really making the most. So don't be afraid to post 4 or 5 times on Facebook and Instagram, and as many tweets as you want, if it's relevant, of course, for your campaign. Just make sure that you're not really exhausting your supporters. You want to make sure that everything that you're posting makes sense, that you're telling your story, and you're really trying to be creative and make the most of your campaign. As for the timing, obviously it's good to spread your posts apart. You can start early in the morning and just go through the day, but it's a good idea to focus more on lunchtime and after work hours. And it's been noticed that these times seem to be the peak times for people of giving. That means that if you want to just make the ask, you can start spreading the ground in the morning and then make the quick link on the day and just focus on that. And of course, this is just the draft timeline. It depends on what your campaign would be, what's your capacity or your content for the day, but you can get an idea of how important it can be to engage with your supporters, to check your accounts, to use the Giving Tuesday hashtag as much as possible. And of course, you can find what others are doing to engage with them, find some other organizations who might have some great stories to share. And it's pretty much a day to celebrate the way of digital giving and what that could mean for every organization. Another important element, just after the end of the day, it's quite easy to assume that this is the end of Giving Tuesday, this is the end of my campaign, let's get to the next steps. It's a good idea to think of the day after. So the best way to make the most of it is to thank everyone who joined the campaign. That doesn't necessarily mean if you don't have the time to thank every single person, but it would be a great gesture to show a great appreciation. That's why we call it Gratitude Wednesday. It's quite common right after Giving Tuesday to start thanking everyone who joined. It might be your team, it might be your supporters, it might be someone who just shared your post. So any kind of engagement and support and anyone who help you reach your goals or set some objectives, it's definitely something that you show your appreciation. And of course, it's another good idea to simply share an update of your goals. There were people who tried to help you during your campaign, whether it was just a like, a retweet, or of course a donation. You want to make sure that you're saying how their contribution really helped towards the bigger goal. So it's a great idea to make them feel involved and special. And of course, if you can get them even loyal to your next goals and campaigns. And once you try to get out of the big day and the hectic schedule that you probably had, you can focus more on the week or the next weeks after the Giving Tuesday to analyze the performance of your posts and your campaigns. It's a good way to see what really worked, what you'd like to improve, and if you really manage to set your targets, you can just check with your team and say, this is why I felt it worked. This is a great way to make a case about the use of social media, or how fundraising can really help me find different ways to just explore it in the future. And another great way is you can link Giving Tuesday with the end of the year Christmas campaign. So you can just prepare the ground and just keep a conversation going if you have the same story, just to make sure that you're making the most of the day, turning it into a big month of giving, for example. So this was just an idea of what a plan could look like. Of course, you don't need to follow every single step, but it might be useful for you now that we have almost 4 weeks for the big day to have a think with your team, or if it's just one person, to still think of what you'd like to say on the day, on how can you really get organized now and what would you really like to achieve. As we mentioned, it's all about setting smart objectives. You don't really need to be big goals. You don't necessarily need to have like a game-changing day, but still it can be a great day to benefit with many different ways. And then we get to the idea again of storytelling and why do we feel this really matters?
Yeah, and as I was saying before, Teresa, I think the biggest mistake all of us make, even within Lightful sometimes, is that we get into a habit of posting one-off pieces of content that perhaps aren't exactly as well thought out as we would have liked. But what we all need to remember when we're thinking about building stronger relationships with our donor base and advocates and champions is that we really want to be telling them stories of the impact we're making in the world and what we're really working on, so that they get a holistic view of that and not just a tiny piece of that, essentially. So within Lightful, so the platform that me and Teresa work with every day, essentially, there's a really useful story building feature. And what Teresa has done is built out a Giving Tuesday specific storytelling template. And for those of you who are in the habit of posting ad hoc and just every now and again, and are wondering, okay, how do I craft a story for Giving Tuesday for my organization? This is a really good free tool that you can use. And essentially, Teresa's template will guide you through the different things you should be talking about in a timeline fashion towards Giving Tuesday and getting you ready for that day and engaging with your supporter base. So all you would need to do is essentially sign into Lightful. We'll send you a link around if you're interested. Create those posts. As you can see on the left-hand side, the templates have really strong advice for what you need to be crafting on every specific post throughout the 4-week period. Add the dates you would like for those posts to go out, and then simply launch your story, and then you'll have aggregated analytics that will tell you how you've done and what impact you've had amongst your follower base across social. Another really useful resource that I've mentioned already is the social media toolkit for Giving Tuesday. This will really help you to get organized, as well as the slides that we'll send over. And then finally, for those of you who really like to print off a piece of paper and tick off as you go for micro tasking, we've got a nice, easy to follow checklist for you there that you can keep on your desk and make sure you're tracking towards success on Giving Tuesday. What we'll do now is we'll stop for any questions. So if you hit the chat window, if you hit the chat icon at the bottom of the screen, we'll just have an open floor for any questions anyone would like to ask.
Or if you want us to focus on more specific slides to spend more time.
So Naomi's asking, will we send the Story Builder link? Yes, Naomi. So we'll send you a link to the Lightful social media management platform. As I said before, it's totally free for charities. And then one of our team can guide you through building your Giving Tuesday Story Builder if you would like help with that as well. Moji also wants the Storytelling Builder, so that's a good sign that everyone's ready to tell stories. Yeah, we'll send via email to you all a copy of the slides, the links to Ash's CAF and Giving Tuesday URLs, the useful URLs, a link to the Lightful platform where you can sign up and start using the storytelling template, and a link to the social media toolkit and worksheet as well. Any questions specific to anyone's org? If they're worried about anything, if they're excited about anything, now's the place to say it so that we can help you build on any of the ideas you've had. Or do we have examples of good storytelling campaigns for small charities in particular?
I'm sure we do. We can definitely follow up with that. Not to hand at the minute though.
What I will do as well, we have some slides from another presentation we've done. So there's some really good examples from animal shelters in the US that we've got where they've essentially used their animals within the shelter to do donor appreciation by simply hanging a Giving Tuesday sign over with a thank you message. We've got some really good clothing donation campaign examples from India and Sri Lanka that we'll send over to you. Yeah, we'll make sure, me and Teresa will aggregate those. Denise is asking how many goals are realistic. To be honest, Denise, if you have the time and resource available to you, those are the two things I would say. You should have an overall objective for the day, so that you as a team can probably align on that. But think about how far you've stretched yourself before, and maybe stretch yourself a little bit more, but it's more important that they're measurable and achievable and realistic. So, is the day global? How many days has it got now, Ash? How many countries?
Yes, so it's absolutely a global movement. It runs officially in 40 countries where there's organisations similar to CAF that are leading it in country. It obviously, as I said, originated in the US but is continuing to grow, and it actually runs unofficially and gains exposure in over 150 countries. So it's getting bigger and bigger as a global movement for good.
Okay, thank you. What list?
The countries.
Oh yeah, we'll send you the list of countries, Mark, that it's that Giving Tuesday is active in. Toby's saying they're doing a big Give Christmas challenge which crosses over with Giving Tuesday. Any advice on tying them in other than just using the hashtags?
Yes, so absolutely. So at Giving Tuesday, we work really closely with the Big Give as they launch it on Giving Tuesday because of Giving Tuesday. So I guess just tying it completely into that campaign and using the day of Giving Tuesday to sort of kickstart your campaign and promote it mainly.
Great. And people are just asking for more sector examples, so healthcare, universities that are looking to engage with alumni for specific sponsorships.
On that, I guess one of the things that I should say is that the Giving Tuesday headquarters, you can get in touch with us and we can have a kind of phone call with you to talk about your specific sector to sort of highlight examples that we've been working with in the past. For example, on the university's case, we were working with a university that tied in their alumni fundraising engagement with student volunteering on the day. So they got their students to volunteer on Giving Tuesday, and use that as a promotional way of promoting to their alumni about trying to get them to donate. So there's some really good examples that we can definitely share sector by sector. If you want to get in touch with us, we're happy to have a quick conversation on the phone or email. We're on campaigns at cafonline.org, which we can also send around afterwards.
I'll type it in as well, campaigns at cafonline.org.
Yeah, perfect.
Hey folks, we're back. Sorry for that. We're just sharing, I've just shared the email address for Ash and the team at CAF, where if you want to organise a call with them just to learn more about some sector examples or anything else, you can get in touch with them on that email address.
Yeah,
universities. Were you saying anything about unis?
Yeah, I was just saying that we've worked with a couple of universities on their strategies that have done a variety of different fundraising campaigns, so we can talk in more detail about those if you get in touch.
Okay, yeah, so anyone with sector-specific questions, get in touch definitely with CAF via the email address, which you should have received in the chat window. Which one are we answering now? Does it seem acceptable to raise throughout November, just only not on the day specifically, but throughout the whole of the month?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the ethos of Giving Tuesday is that it is one day to make a world of difference, but the aim of the campaign is to try and increase giving throughout the year. So as much as you can tie it in around throughout November, sometimes using countdowns to the day is really, really helpful. So saying 1 week to go, as Teresa was saying, it's really something to utilise as much as you can. So as much as you can spread it out, I think the better. Yes. we would actively encourage that.
Yeah, totally. And Sonia, is video likely to be more engaging than still images for storytelling? I would say, yeah, video is one of the most engaging formats if you have the luxury of having nice video case studies, for example, or telling the story of your charity through the video. But also it depends on your objective, essentially. Yeah. If you want them to, drive traffic to your website where they read up more about your campaign, then video can play a part in it for the awareness piece. But you may want to mix your content up as well as it relates to your objective.
It's also worth noting, as a side note, as somebody who doesn't work as much on video, it's some good advice that my social media colleagues at CAF told me, that subtitles are really important on video, because the majority of viewers view video on silent mode because they're kind of either commuting to work or sat on the sofa multitasking, watching TV whilst watching the video. So subtitles are really key.
Teresa, do you want to answer that?
Naomi is asking if we recommend the amount of copy or quantity of photos on Facebook posts. Facebook, comparing to Twitter, is quite different, as you say. It's more about the quantity and the quality sometimes. So you can still post 3, 4, 5 posts during the day, but it pretty much depends on your campaign and the content that you have. If you have lots of photos and videos, feel free to post as many as possible. But you just want to make sure that every post is engaging, because you probably already know that Facebook and the reach is quite tricky. So you want to make sure that you're getting as many people as possible. But feel free to post as many tweets, for example, as possible. There's no problem on that.
And also, just on the tweets, obviously we talked about the hashtag, but also if you include the @GivingTuesdayUK, we'll try and retweet and help gain profile on the day as well.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, in that you can all help each other as well by just, any other relevant charities in your sector that are active on Giving Tuesday, spread their message if it's relevant, because we all will help each other in that way.
Another Facebook question on whether the reach will be massively impacted from 2 or 3 posts a day. It depends on the posts. If you feel that you've got a great campaign, and again, you've got lots of photos and videos to share, then yeah, the reach can really impact on the day. And you don't necessarily need to think of your usual schedule, because it's a different day, it's a big day of giving. So you can go ahead and post more than the usual ones. But of course, it's not suggested on a day-to-day basis.
Any other questions from anyone?
So there's still a question mark over whether Facebook will be doing the match funding in the UK. We're in constant conversation with them, but we haven't had confirmation as yet. But we will communicate as soon as we do have confirmation.
So is the best way to stay up to date, follow CAF social channels or the website?
Yeah, or signing up as a partner, because effectively as you sign up as a partner, you're effectively just signing up to our mailing list, which will provide key updates such as anything that we hear in terms of the match funding, and also on our social channels, to the Giving Tuesday UK.
And we'll be providing that link again just to sign up as a partner as part of our follow-up email to you all. Okay. Oh, one more question. Are there different levels to being a partner, e.g. getting seen more?
So there are different levels, because as being part of our network, we'll get in contact with our partners around things like our press releases that we do from Giving Tuesday, which include some of the most engaging stories, so we can try and include key engaging activities in that. We can put your case studies up on our webpage in order to help promote it. And yeah, so I guess there are several benefits to being a partner. So we've been asked a question about utilising being somebody's charity for the year for Sainsbury's. It's worth noting that Sainsbury's are a partner of Giving Tuesday, so that's even just knowing that will be helpful in terms of contacting them. Yeah. I guess anything in terms of contacting the stores directly, referring to the fact that Sainsbury's as a whole is a Giving Tuesday partner, and then promoting them to try and get to do in-store promotions, because I think that's the best way of that helps raise profile of your charity, but also with the donation buckets or counters, that's a really good way of making money. And my understanding is that that's all done at a local branch level. So Giving Tuesday could be a really good hook for promoting their work with you.
And obviously if you do manage to get them also to retweet your message, and you'll dramatically increase your reach, I imagine. No problem, Naomi. Okay. If there's no other questions, we will end the webinar now, but thank you all for attending. Again, we'll send all of those follow-ups to you. If you want any sector specific examples, reach out to the CAF email, which we'll also send you in the follow-up. But we wish you all the best of luck with your Giving Tuesday campaigns, and thank you very much to Ash and Teresa for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much everybody for listening.
Okay. Have a good week. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Not the weekend quite yet. See you all soon. Bye-bye.